Let's get into a spoiler-free movie review now. I want to talk about a Best Picture nominee, The Banshees of Inisherin. One of the most peculiar films I've seen in the Best Picture category, and one that I don't think is for everybody. I think within the first 20 minutes of this movie, I looked over to my wife and she said, "What is this? What are we watching?" And it is a bit of a slow burn, and it's one of those movies where you expect there to be something else, and there's really not. And sometimes that upsets me or disappoints me. But when I realized this is all this movie was going to be about, I was all in and I ended up really enjoying it. And what the movie really is, it's about Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, who are friends, and the entire movie is about them not being friends anymore. It's about a friendship unraveling. At the beginning, it feels like for no particular reason, but that's really it. It's just about a friendship unraveling and all the crazy links that this one guy goes through just because he can't take no for an answer. So before I get into my full review of The Banshees of Inisherin, here is just a little bit of the trailer.
Colin's sonny Larry. Didn't you and he used to be the best of friends?
We're still the best of friends.
No, you're not.
Who says we're not?
Sit somewhere else.
Now, if I've done something to you, just tell me what I've done to you.
Well, you didn't do anything to me. I just don't like you no more.
You liked me yesterday.
So Colin Farrell plays a guy named Patrick. Brendan Gleeson plays a guy named Colin. Sorry if I butcher their names. After watching this movie, since it takes place in Ireland and they're both Irish actors, I've been trying to talk like Colin Farrell, so everything kind of comes out like this. I feel like I could go to the Banshees of Inisherin and blend in a little bit. So I've been doing that a lot. So forgive me if I mess up the pronunciations of their names. But they are friends, and it starts at the very beginning of their story of them not being friends anymore. One day, Brendan Gleeson is just like, "Yo, I don't want to hang out with you anymore." And Colin Farrell is kind of this dimwit guy who has trouble putting things together, and he doesn't get it. He doesn't want to lose his best friend, and he goes through all these links to get him back. He won't take no for an answer. He keeps bothering him, even with the crazy stipulation he puts towards Colin Farrell to tell him, "Never contact me again." It keeps going further and further. And once I realized that, it really helped me settle into this movie. And I understood that I was watching a comedy. And I've said recently that I feel like we're kind of out of the era of comedies. But maybe we're just out of the era of American comedies because they handle this one so well and it was so interesting and so more thought out that I think this is what comedies need to evolve into. It doesn't have to be all these zany things, all these gags and pop culture reference jokes and quotable moments that we tend to associate with comedies. I think you kind of need to grow from that to make people laugh again and have more stories like this where it's more situational comedy and finding really peculiar characters doing really unusual things. And there's all these cast of characters throughout this small little remote island. It just felt like a really great ensemble cast, and it didn't really feel like it was trying so hard to be funny. Just the essence of it, I found hilarious anyway. So it's a very deadpan style of comedy, and I just really love the focus on finding a very remote island and telling a story there. And sometimes when I'm like driving across the country on a road trip, I'll see a very remote house and think, what is that person's story? They are nowhere near a grocery store or a gas station. Like, how do they survive? Sometimes you see these small little towns and you think there has to be a story in there. And I felt like this is what the Banshees of Inisherin was. It was taking this small little community and amplifying it. These otherwise unorthodox characters that no one else would tell their story. That is exactly what this movie does. So again, I don't think it's for everybody. And watching this movie a little bit closely, you can kind of tell why it's getting so many nominations. It's like right up there with what critics are going to like. And now, like I talked about earlier, I think it is a contender because of that. So I still have that feeling that it could win for Best Picture. I don't think it deserves to, but it does have that appeal of it being novel and also being a comedy. But there are no bells and whistles. It's really just a character study. Within the first 10 minutes of the movie, you're like, what is happening right now? And the other thing I really enjoyed about this film was the cinematography and the focus on the landscape of Ireland. They made this country out to look completely beautiful, which I'm sure it's beautiful all on its own. But they really focused on that, and they really highlighted that the island itself is kind of personified being responsible for what's going on in all of these people's lives, and the fact that only so few people live there kind of adds to that humor of the craziness that happens on this small little island. I just really loved how relentless Colin Farrell's character is, and it made me kind of appreciate him a little bit more as an actor. I've seen so many of his movies, but I never really would put him on my list of he's an actor that I have to see every single movie they've been in. But in the last 10 years, he's had quite a range of being able to do really big blockbusters and smaller indie movies. So in the last 10 years, this definitely makes the list of one of my favorite roles of his. And the range he has from doing a character like this to playing the Penguin in The Batman, and also doing movies like After Yang and The Lobster, it definitely gives him a little bit more of a case for me. It definitely made me want to be a little bit more invested in him and pay attention to some of his roles because he picked some really good ones. And I think he really kind of shined in this role because he is Irish. And I think that added to a lot of the humor in this movie because it maybe came a little bit more natural to him. And also him and Brendan Gleeson's just real life friendship, that really translated on screen. I think that is a great friendship because it is so unusual. It, in a weird way, kind of reminded me of the dynamic in Superbad, to where they are friends, but they also kind of have a falling out. There's some built up tension there. So in some weird, bizarre way, I kind of had that feeling of this is like Superbad in Ireland, but without a party. So if you are looking for something to watch that's rather peculiar, if you're interested in seeing all the Best Picture nominees and you don't want to watch a drama, you want to watch a comedy, and I'll still use the term comedy a little bit loosely because it's not LOL, you're going to wet your pants watching this comedy. It's a very deadpan style, which is what I'm into. But if all that sounds good to you, you can watch it on HBO Max, and I would give Banshees of Inisherin 4 out of 5 fingers. You got to watch to find out why it's fingers.